Hello, and welcome to Psychic Sundays with sisters Louise and Michelle. They are both full-time psychic mediums, healers, and teachers. In each episode, they will share with you their experiences, knowledge, and some wisdom from their guides. So grab a cuppa, sit back, put your feet up, and enjoy this podcast as they journey into the spiritual realms together.
Hello everybody and welcome to Psychic Sundays podcast with sisters Michelle
and Louise.
And today we've got two very interesting guests here with us. But we do have someone we've met before who's here, very close again to Louise's heart.
Well, yes, my husband, Jonno Webster. Hello.
Hello.
Jonno's in the room.
And we're also really pleased that we've got Andy Porter with us.
Hi there, folks.
Welcome, Andy. And it's lovely to meet you. And thank you for doing this podcast with us. So it's a really interesting subject that we're going to talk about today and discuss in depth. And this is what Andy and Jonno are doing together with their SRT. So just run us through what it is, how you met. Well, your journey really, you two.
Yeah, how you became, well, not just colleagues, but friends now.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'm happy to start. So, yeah, spirit release therapy. So my journey really sort of goes back so far, I've kind of almost forgotten how long, probably about 22 years or something, from a spiritual perspective. So for me, really, I wasn't really into anything spiritual at all, as most people tend not to be, that end up on this path. And then circumstances changed, got divorced, met my wife now, Jane, and at that point, that was my kind of spiritual turning on point, really. And then I kind of threw myself into having lots of spiritual problems. A house that was possessed, things moving around, lots of shivers in the night, dark things, furniture moving. So it was like, it felt like I lived through some sort of like crazy movie, really, the sort of thing you see from Hollywood. But for me, it was reality. And that kind of drove me to quite a dark place for quite a long time.
Wow.
And I then obviously worked my way out of that, spent a lot of time in Glastonbury in the UK, buying sort of second-hand books on, spiritual possession, exorcism, that kind of thing. So just worked through how to work out what was going on in my life and identify what these spirits were that seemed to be attaching to me and actually controlling my life from that perspective.
Can I just ask, what is, for the people to know out there, because not everybody will know, what would you class as a house having a spiritual possession? What would that be?
So my experience of it was a house that felt dark all the time. As soon as I opened the front door, I used to get kind of goosebumps as I walked into the house.
It's a very physical feeling.
Very physical, yeah. Things moving around on their own.
Gosh,
so I would put things down, car keys
obviously
somewhere.
not moving around on their own. Yeah.
Well, no, not completely on their own.
Yeah.
So where's the car keys gone? I'm sure I didn't put them in the lounge underneath the sofa when I walked in by the front door.
Yes, why would you do that?
So things disappearing really and manifesting in different places that I was 100% sure I didn't leave them and put them in. So that was quite interesting.
Okay. So you had a spiritual being, mischievous entity in your house.
Yeah, basically, I think there was multiple of them at the time, which is why I started to see shadows under the doors at night, and I'd hear lots of banging and crashing and things like that.
Now, isn't that interesting? Because that's obviously you being pushed into the work
That you do
now.
It certainly was. It was really good, actually. I look back now and think I was really lucky to have that crazily bad experience.
Sure.
Because, of course, it set me up to do what I'm doing now, effectively, which is obviously working in sort of spirit release therapy.
Yeah, which we'll get into in a bit. So it's interesting, and most people that me and Lou have interviewed and spoken to, and from ourselves as well, is people seem to go through something that just wakes them up.
Yeah.
It's either a divorce or it's a loss or it's something, very emotional or something where they're looking or feeling for something alternative, and it just seems to wake people up or know that there is something more and something bigger out there, which is exactly what you two are doing together.
It is.
Yeah, it
I'll
is.
hand over to Jonno for a quick
So with me, I started working at a similar timescale to Andy, really. In fact, you'll probably find that as we talk, we have a parallel life.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. Whatever Andy's experienced, pretty much I've had it. Whatever I've had, Andy also puts a tick in the box.
And the same time scale.
Yeah,
Same
timelines,
launch.
events, pretty much everything. I started about 20 years ago working in Reiki, and then progressed through my guides working slightly differently into psychic surgery, trance healing, energy healing.
But you also had a house problem, didn't you?
And I
Got you
also
into
had
the
house
Reiki.
issues.
So
Yeah.
what was that? What was going on in your house? Just a question, sorry. Was this at the same time you both had the house issues, like a similar year?
It would probably be about the same time.
Yeah.
Probably was actually.
How funny.
Yeah. But we had a visitor in the house.
Okay.
And it was disturbing my children for, in total, 4 years.
Gosh.
But we didn't know at the time it was a visitor. We just couldn't pinpoint it. And then my 2-year-old daughter started talking about the little girl in the house and how it was affecting her and how she was frightened and things like that. So we called it the services of a medium.
Yeah.
And basically, to cut a very long story short, that medium said that it was spirit knocking at my door.
Yes.
And it was for me to
Yes.
help the little girl. And if I did, my life would change. And if I didn't, my life would continue as it is.
Wow. So there you are, your pathway.
Yeah, so
Your choice.
I chose to help the little girl.
Amazing. And isn't that interesting visually for people that are listening? Is I know that when we all do our readings or our work, that we see that pathway of if you continue on here and you'll make changes quicker, but if you don't, you'll still come back to the same path. It's just going to be more difficult for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the path is in front of you. It just depends which route you take.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm sure that if I hadn't have made that decision at the time, another one would have come.
Exactly, without question.
So then working through healing, really, I started to work with attachments, clearing attachments. And
so what would you class as attachments? Because then we're going to get into what it is that you two are. Such an exciting project you're doing together.
So really, the way that Andy and I would describe it, and those that work in the SRT being spirit release therapy, we talk about having a sovereign body, and that body is an energetic, etheric body.
So spirit release therapy. What do you mean by spirit release therapy? What is that? If you can expand on that slightly.
So if we have a client that is feeling unwell, not themselves. They can talk in different languages. They can get night terrors. It can also be their family that notice it more than them, because sometimes somebody who has an attachment doesn't know themselves. And that's picked up on a lot by family members and those that are close to them. But what we're talking about is every person has their own etheric, energetic body. And when that is clear of any negativity, Andy and I and the SRT world would describe that as sovereign. It's a sovereign energy. It's your energy without interference.
So you are standing in your
own power.
You are standing in your own power. And visually, it's kind of like you're clear. Your aura is clear. Your etheric body is clear. And so you've got a strong boundary or protection around you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So different types of auric fields, different types of protection would work on that. But there's unfortunately, the majority of people in this world don't use spiritual protection. They don't understand energy, can attract energy, etc., etc., etc. So any energy that comes into your etheric body that is not yours will have a negative effect because it's not your energy to work with. And sometimes these energies have an intelligence. Sometimes they're there purely to take advantage of the transporter, the carrier, the client. And what we do is go in and try to clear that energy and put that etheric body back to being sovereign again.
Wonderful.
So can you give us some examples of energy that would interfere with a sovereign person?
Andy?
Because there's more than one.
Yeah, okay, it's a really good question, actually. So, I mean, there's a whole raft of different energetic entities that can connect. So, obviously, we've got, firstly, discarnate spirit, so people like us that have been alive in a physical body, and then they've died, but haven't passed over to what we would call the light, or term as the light.
So we would call that like an earthbound spirit?
So that would be an earthbound spirit. Okay. So lots of people have those attached to them. And if you go, especially if you go through, again, some type of grief or some sort of major trauma in your life, your, as Jonno was saying, your etheric field sort of drops and diminishes. And I'd term it as perforations. So the etheric field perforates. And that gives these earthbound spirits the ability to connect to you.
And hospitals?
hospitals are basically full of them.
Yes,
People
of
that have
course.
died
Yeah.
in operations.
Well, and also, I guess people that have died, and also maybe if you're there grieving for somebody, or you're worried about someone, or you're emotional about the person that's going through a procedure, or critically ill, then your etheric body must weaken because your defences go down, perhaps.
Yeah, so anytime you're unwell, so if you're physically ill or if you're going through some emotional trauma, then your etheric field obviously kind of pulls in on itself, and it makes you then vulnerable to some type of attachment in terms of that earthbound spirit.
So can you just explain why we have earthbound spirits? Because some people will now be freaking out about that.
So earthbound spirits are kind of everywhere, really. So people that die that don't pass over properly. If you died in a very quick traumatic car accident, let's say 1 minute here, the next minute you're dead.
Okay.
The spirit is disorientated, doesn't realise it's basically left the physical body, and tends to hang around in that place.
And also, is it true that they, well, I don't know why I'm asking the question. I've come across myself on doing house clearings is not wanting to go, even though they know the light's there, they're scared, they're anxious, they've not had a very good life. It's what is there, nobody loves me there, I wasn't a good person, I want to stay here, I haven't cleared up some things, I need to talk to people, I need someone to listen to me as well. So that would be another.
There's also too much fear base.
Yeah.
Which holds
Religions,
you back.
beliefs.
Yeah, sure.
If you look at religion as an example, you're told from day one that you will be judged.
Yeah.
And you will be told that you're a sinner.
Yeah.
So there are many people that have a really strong faith belief system, and then when they pass, they're scared to go into the light because of that judgment and because of what might happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting because then on the flip side to that is forgiveness
Yeah.
in some religions, so it's so conflicting, isn't it? You don't know what's up and what's down.
Yeah, so there are many spirits perhaps that really would have no issue going into the light other than the fact that they're scared. And that scare factor, that fear factor is holding them back.
Good, so that explains the earthbound spirit.
So then what they would look for is an
Yeah.
energetic being as
Yeah,
a
so back
transporter.
to-
And that's where we come in as
great.
being physical on the earth.
Okay, fantastic. So we were also talking about other types of...
Yes, Andy.
Yes, okay, second thing really, attachment-wise, that John and I kind of work with on a daily basis would be negative entities. So again, these are sort of low vibrating entities. Again, different religions, different words, so demonic, jinn, that kind of thing, depending on where your cultural belief is. But some sort of negative entity that basically comes from a different dimension, if you like. So these entities are around us. We see images of them on churches and religious buildings, sort of gargoyles and things. So we're kind of dealing with gargoyle-y type entities on a daily basis, and they're quite easy to remove. So, but these entities obviously attach to people in the same way that earthbounds do, and when they're attached, they obviously start to encourage negative behaviour. So substance abuse, alcoholism, those sorts of things, and of course their whole kind of reason for being really is to create fear in the person they're attached to. So therefore, that person's life becomes quite negative quite fast.
So fear is it because fear gives so much energy for them? Why would they want to create fear?
Yeah, so it's the vibrational frequency of fear is low, basically, and these entities exist in a place where their substance that they kind of eat from. We eat food to keep us going, keep us alive. These entities basically use the vibration of fear to kind of exist in that way.
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline, yeah.
Yeah, of course. So this particular kind of entities, where do they come from? Where are they, like elementals? I mean, how would you describe them? So what level are they, or where do they exist in our world? Do they come from a different universe or a different energy place? How do they attach to us, or where do they come from? Where do they live?
That's a good question, a very good question. So my understanding of that is that these are kind of interdimensional creatures, basically, that exist in our galaxy. They come from other galaxies. My understanding from the kind of the teachings from Chen, my guide, is that they're kind of unlimited. So there's not a number of them. There's not like 10 types of species. There's like thousands of species, and there's a lot of them here. They all exist in different vibrations that we can't see. But obviously mediums and psychic people can deal with them. Yeah. And Jonno and I on a daily basis we can talk to them. So I used to actually engage with negative entities just out of interest to ask them where they're from, what species they're from, why they're here, and why they've attached to somebody. But I realised quite quickly that I was kind of wasting my time, really, because they don't tell the truth generally. And of course, the whole point of our work is to clear them, to make someone feel better. So the conversational aspect is interesting from one perspective, but when you've got lots of clearings to do every day, it's easier just to clear a person and move them on. And they feel the change instantly, which is what I like about this work.
Yeah, it is an instant thing.
Yeah, it is an instant thing, isn't it? We get a lot of feedback from people saying that literally within an hour or so. And I can speak from a personal experience because Andy did a clearing for me once, and I could feel the change in the energy in my ears, and I could feel and hear the frequency changing, and then I felt so different. And of course, I also, like you guys, had quite a haunted house, and the energy was so thick and heavy until it was cleared, and then you realise the energy had been so heavy, but you hadn't before because you were living in it. So it's absolutely fascinating. So you two, how do you do your work? Because you say we go in and clear. When you say we, tell me who we is.
So basically, the way that Andy and I have been trained, we both have our separate experiences
So, Jonno,
working.
sorry to interrupt. Just talk about your training. What kind of training is it that you had to undergo? What are the principles, or what do you need to be, or
Yeah,
you're both teachers, right? Heading towards teaching this, guys.
Yeah,
How exciting!
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, Andy worked as a psychic surgeon and a healer, so did I.
Yeah.
Andy started teaming up with Dr. Terence Palmer, and I'm sure he'll tell you about that experience. And I started doing my own work.
Yeah.
And it was only through, I saw an advertisement for Andy who was demonstrating psychic surgery, and I attended, or we attended, Louise and I attended.
Yes.
And we're going back maybe 6-7 years. And when we met Andy there, we also met Dr. Terence Palmer. And as soon as Dr. P started realising that I was a psychic surgeon and healer, he started talking to me about spirit release therapy. And a particular case that he gave as an example for a clearing particularly grabbed my attention. Right. And from that meant that I now wanted to go and work with Andy, work with Dr. Palmer, and progress in this sort of specialist.
Can you talk
dimension,
about what that
really.
particular case was, or is it confidential?
No, it's not confidential at all. It's on YouTube. It's the one that you did with the soldier.
Oh, yeah, with Mike, yeah. So do you want me to give the summary on that?
Please, yeah. Just get people interested to understand and put some meat on the bones.
This is like a real conversation, real case. So Mike was a UK soldier. He'd been to various different countries, obviously as a soldier, effectively to war zones and things. And he'd come back from battle. He was then diagnosed with PTSD, and he's had PTSD and some quite severe mental problems really from the time that he came back. And he'll tell you basically over like 20 years he tried every therapy, he tried every medication, tried everything he possibly could, and really didn't get better. He was hearing voices 24/7. He couldn't sleep. Unfortunately tried to commit suicide lots of times. So he was a very troubled soul basically. Yeah. And I'm not quite sure how Terry got hold of him, but those two linked up. I think he contacted Terry asking if SRT could help him. And so he said, well, let's find out, which was classic of Terry because he didn't do anything by house. It was, it wasn't a case of maybe we can, maybe we can't. It was, let's do it then and find out. So Terry contacted me and said, look, let's set a session up in Corsham in the UK. We'll get Mike to come down from up north because he lived sort of 5 or 6 hours away. So Terry, bless him, paid for Mike to come down on the train. And we all met up in Equilibrium in Corsham. And then we basically went through we filmed it because we were pretty sure that we could help and that this was going to be the first sort of tangible results, really, that we could actually keep on record. So Terry set up for Ben to come down. He was a film crew guy. So he set lots of cameras and video and things that ran the room. And then we just sat and went through what Jonno and I do every day, which to us seems easy, really. Just a normal kind of SRT removal case. So we spoke to Mike, asked him what the voices were saying, how they contacted him, and then I tuned in from a psychic perspective through my guide Chen, and we identified that there were 4 or 5 people that were connected to Mike. So a bomb had gone off, I think it was in Sarajevo or somewhere like that, and a lot of people had died instantly, basically. And then Mike came along with his crew walking down the street, and these people then connected to him. And from that moment onward, he could hear them. They were speaking to him. They didn't move to the light.
No.
So, of course, he went, he obviously finished that short tour of duty, came back to the UK, and then had voices, basically, from that day onwards. So we just spoke to the people that were connected to him,
Yeah.
told them that they were in the wrong place, they needed to let go. So my guide Chen facilitated moving them over. So kind of in the way that we visualise things, we visualise a door opening and then the spirit walking through. So they were taken to the light, and literally within probably 20 minutes, Mike was sat out in the cafeteria in tears saying, voices are gone.
Oh, bless.
Amazing.
Wow.
Which,
Yeah, so that was what I was getting at a little bit earlier when I say we, you and your guide Andy, and you and your guide Jonno. So if you, that
exactly. So I mean, one of the real structures that Andy and Dr. Palmer put together was a working protocol that we worked through, and what that does, it enables a facilitator and a medium to work together. But there's also a third part, and that third part is the spirit guide and the medium, and the team that are unseen in this facility. So basically we work through the protocol. The protocol is facilitated by the facilitator,
Yes.
and the medium connects to the guides, and the guides do the work, basically.
So what information do you need, or how do you work on the person? Because is this done face-to-face? Is this done remotely? Because Andy's just given an example of it being all being in the same room.
Yeah.
So is that how it needs to be? I mean, I know the answer, but just for everyone
Yeah.
else.
So no, it can be face-to-face,
Yeah.
but usually this is remote spirit release. So
Right.
by remote, it's not unusual for a medium, say like us, to be in Wiltshire,
Yeah.
a facilitator to be in America,
Yeah.
working on a client in Australia.
Right, isn't that phenomenal? It's just
amazing.
amazing. It just
So-
goes to show how we're all
So technology helps us communicate on a physical world,
yeah.
but the spirit world don't need that. They can literally work anywhere. So once we have a name, an age, and a location, so that the
Right.
spirit world can pinpoint them.
Yes.
Once we get
Like
that
Google
connection,
Maps.
yeah, it's like a spiritual Google Maps. That's exactly what it is. Once you put your coordinates in,
yeah.
and then the guides will check that we have permission from the higher self to work. If the answer is no, there's no work. But
Fine.
99.9% of the time, the higher self wants this work.
Okay, fine. So permission from higher self, and then then what happens? Are you like awake? Do you go into a trance? Does your guide overshadow you? Because I know that Louise, you do it with Louise, don't you? So
I
she
do,
takes
yeah.
all the notes and
Yeah, so both Andy and I are
Yes.
both trance mediums.
yeah.
So Andy will answer his own, but I work in a light trance on this.
Right.
I do have consciousness around.
Yeah.
I don't influence anything. I'm actually quite good at not influencing the work of my guide, but that's because I work with him daily for a number of
Sure.
years, and I've got a really strong connection to him.
Yeah.
And he will then work through me. Sometimes I will go a little bit deeper, but it's not like a healing session where I will go entranced and then sometimes out. It will be on a much lighter basis.
And so, how does that look from your perspective, Louise? And we can ask Andy. Because you sit with him, don't you?
Yeah, I sit with him and I can just see when White Hawk's there, and White Hawk always uses the same word when he's there to say I'm ready.
Confirmation.
And then we go, exactly. And I can just see it on his face and I can feel his energy. But that's because we work together and are married, so we can read each other very
And that
well.
you're both mediums.
Exactly.
See that
yeah,
energy and
yeah,
you'll know
yeah,
that.
Yeah. So, but Andy, I don't know how you
Well,
do it.
just one sec. I just wanted to ask. So, because the process is more complicated, because you're all so used to it, and it's like second nature to all of you. I'm just trying to grab all those more snippets of information from you. So when Jonno's in a light trance and White Hawk comes in,
White Hawk comes in, then I will speak to White Hawk,
so then
and
you're
he will answer me.
right. So Jonno facilitates for White Hawk to come in once White Hawk's done Google Maps.
Yes.
And
And the team. And
and
there's
the
a team,
team,
it's not just him.
and the team, and then Jonno will communicate with you, and you write the notes, or you.
So we record it.
So it's recorded.
I ask the questions.
Right.
White Hawk through Jonno will speak,
Yeah.
give me the replies, and then I will go away and type a report.
And so I mean that all sounds very simple, but type a report on what, Louise?
So
7 layers, 8, 10.
okay, well I'll let
guys,
you two
Andy, do
answer
you want to take that
all the
one,
different
or?
questions we ask
Yeah, cool. So from my perspective, I
and
kind
how
of
we
work
got to it.
slightly differently than you guys, really. So I just kind of sit in my room, connect to Chen, who's my guide, so I can hear him the same as you guys can hear your guides
Yeah.
very easily.
Yeah.
So I just work through, we're connecting to a client, are you connected? You'll say, yep, we're connected. And then I'll just start asking questions, basically, how many negative entities are connected? Can we clear them, yes or no? Have you done it? Yes or no? So I'll just work through the list of things that we clear, the different levels in that way, really.
So what are the levels?
So on each individual person, we'll work usually between 12 and 17 different levels on one person for one clearing.
Yeah.
So it's not like, because there's many people that work in holistic therapy that deal with attachments and work with a level of attachments. And that for us, for what is normally considered attachment work, for us, that's one level.
Yeah.
So then there'll be about another 12 to 16 different levels that we actually go in. And
So-
just make sure that the body, when we've finished, we want to be confident that the body is sovereign.
Yeah.
So we go through all different things.
16 to 17 to however many levels. So do you keep on going until you know that that's it? There's nothing beyond that level. So somebody could be just level 3. They're okay. Or do you always go up, up, up? Could there be like...
No, we always go through.
You always go through, because I'm wondering,
Yeah.
so if we go to level 7 and there's nothing there, level 8 there's nothing there, level 9 there's nothing there.
Level 10 there will be.
Fine, that's what I wanted to know.
So this is the thing about the energetic world, right?
Yeah.
Is that we don't fully understand it.
Yeah,
And there are so many levels where
Yeah.
people can have interference.
sure.
And it is the case where sometimes we'll have a light clearing.
Yeah,
A light clearing, not very dark energy, nothing really to worry about.
yeah,
But still, out of the 17 levels, there will still probably be at least 10 levels where we work.
wow.
It just depends as to what severity
Yeah.
that interruption is.
Yeah,
And then you get other ones where I go in. One of the signs that's given to me is that I start yawning at the start of a clearing, and that means that this is one not to mess about on. We go through, we clear it, and we get out quickly.
have you ever come across something, Andy, that has... I know you have no fear, because I picked that up earlier on with the simple fact that you're just talking to them anyway and just like, I want to see a little bit more information, and you said they're so devious you obviously don't get the truth anyway. So just straight there, you're just like, okay, fine, he's completely fearless of spirit entities and universal, I don't know, ETs, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to, however you want to explain it in your work. So have you ever come across, though, Andy, something that has been fundamentally wow, or my goodness, or that was really huge or hard or draining?
Yeah, so I had one experience. I used to work in the previous house we lived in, Jane and I. Had a shed at the bottom of the garden. So it was your typical sort of 8x6 shed, basically, that I dressed spiritually. So there were, all sorts of spiritual amulets and things there. So I used to see people in person, clients that would come in, performing psychic surgery the same way that Jonno would. This was hands-on.
Yeah.
So this particular guy was hearing voices and had schizophrenia, basically, and his family had said that he was very abusive and he was quite physical as well. So for me, it was just another client, so I put him on the couch, started to talk. Then I go into a deep trance, like Jonno was saying earlier, let Chen completely take over.
Yeah.
So at this point, I don't really remember what's going on. Chen takes over my physical body and speaks through me. So he's talking to the client, and then he's actually talking to a demonic entity, and they're talking about how they hadn't seen each other for thousands of years and having this bizarre conversation. And I can remember snippets of the conversation because I was interested, so I was trying to sort of listen, even though I wasn't really in body.
So you're
per
mental,
se.
you're just sort of slightly attuned to it. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Almost like that overshadow type
Yeah,
thing, really.
sure,
So
yeah.
I could hear the conversation. Next thing I know, the guy sort of came forward on the bench, grabbed my throat, and started to strangle me properly.
What?
So it wasn't like a play strangle. He was trying to kill me. So this demonic entity was actually trying, and I can remember not being able to breathe. And in my head, I was screaming lots of expletives and things. And Chen just calmly said, stop doing that, and then detached this entity, basically moved him on. And when I came back, I had red hand marks on my throat.
Oh, Andy.
So when I walked in, Jane said, "How'd that go?" I said, "I'll have a brandy and then I'll tell you." It wasn't the best, really.
So then, following on from that unbelievable story, which just goes to show, guys, I mean, this is phenomenal work that these two do, and a few other people that are on their journey with them, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But so, Andy, so tell me, how did the gentleman feel? How did he deal with what he'd done once it been cleared? I mean, how was that for him? Like the difference, or
So yeah, he came to.
yeah,
He
after you knocked him out.
after he tried to kill me. Yeah. He had no recollection of what had happened at all,
Right.
basically. So we sat on the edge of the couch together. I'm kind of white as a sheet, really,
Of course you are.
and sort of visibly shaking.
Of course you are.
And he just laughed and said, "My voices have gone."
Wow.
So on the one hand, it was pretty good result from my perspective. On the other hand, it made me realise that what we're dealing with is heavy duty negativity that
Yeah.
that if they can, they will kind of take you out, really.
And are there some people? Thank you. That's a fascinating story, and what a wonderful change you make to people's lives. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Are there some people you actually can't work on? Or is there questions you need to ask? Is there a protocol, or because people would contact you through the podcast, and I think they might have something that can be done remotely for them. Is there anything that needs to be looked at or assessed first? Medication or something like this,
Or repeat
customers?
Yeah, so
tell us about that.
So firstly, on repeat customers, is the idea is that we don't have repeat customers.
Right.
That's the blessing for the work. But there are people that have repeat clearings,
I've had some.
sometimes because, so if we work a client, they're always given advice onto how to protect themselves energetically.
Yeah.
Even so, that there is sometimes breaks in auric fields, there's breaks in protection fields. I've had clearings from Andy. I've worked with Andy. We've got other people that are within our team, and we work on them. So this is an ongoing thing because there's ongoing intention from different sources.
Yeah.
So it's not like you do a clearing and then it stops.
Yeah.
If we have somebody who has many issues, self-medicates, whether it be through drugs or alcohol, the chances are they're going to come back or could come back within 2 to 4 weeks with another clearing that's required.
Okay, because they haven't taken on board.
Because they don't take on board the
advice,
protective side.
spiritual protection,
Yeah,
and to
and,
change.
and even with that, it doesn't mean that you're going to be clear for the rest of your life. We're talking about energy, and energy is life. So there's always an opportunity, even for us, to pick stuff up.
Is there anybody you've had to say no to?
There's a couple of clients where we've connected to go in to do the work, and the guides have said no.
Right.
So therefore, we haven't taken it any further, and we don't question it. I don't question them when they say yes, so I don't question them when they say no.
So do you think it's like a life journey, a lesson they're going through?
I think a lot of it is a life journey and lesson, and for their own experience to go through.
So
karmic debt.
because I wonder if you two had had clearings before, both of you going in your in your homes and those experiences. I wonder. Let's fast forward or rewind, however we want to look at it. I wonder if somebody had come in to do the clearing for you, whether you would have got a no, because it would have stopped
possibly.
you going on to do what you're doing today. It's like, no, you need to experience
exactly.
this, 'cause something's
So
coming.
if we're told no, it doesn't mean that it's a real negative thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be the best thing in the world. It's just that client doesn't realise it at that time.
Yeah.
The other way, we always ask for connection to the client's higher self.
Yeah.
And if the higher self says no, again, we don't question it. We back out immediately.
Amazing.
And that's because they have overall authority over the client. But just quickly talking about the real sort of dark stuff and the way that you were saying that Andy has no fear and things like that.
Yes.
Just want to emphasise really the reason why we do this is because we both have a really, really strong connection to our guides,
Yes,
as many do.
Yeah.
And we've built up a trust dealing with negative energy over a number of years that now means we kind of specialise in this.
Yes.
So
Not kind of, you do specialise. So kind of about it.
Yeah. So the reason why we go in fearless is because we have that real confidence with our guides that we are completely 100% looked after.
Funnily enough, I'm aware of Andy's guide here as well. So I'm aware of him confirming everything you're saying. So it's interesting.
He does that. He's always checking up on me.
Yeah, no, he is. Well, it's not just that. He's confirming. Yes. I'm just getting all of this. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
So tell us then. So you both met when you went, Jonno. You went to a course, didn't you? And met Andy, and we saw him doing his work. So take us to the next few steps now. So we're going to shut up and let you two take us through your journey from then to everything that's happened and where you're going next.
Yes.
So I took a weekend training with Andy and Dr. Palmer, And it kind of confirmed the attachment work that I was doing already, but it put a label on it, it put a protocol into it, and I started to build a really strong relationship working with Dr. Palmer, and I started to build a really strong relationship working with Andy. And then, of course, socially, we started realising that really we're the same people that in every aspect. And then working as a team, and not just Andy and I, but other mediums and facilitators from around the world, we then started working weekly, very, very regularly, working on cases together. And then since then, Andy and I have really sort of built this up. Unfortunately, Dr. Palmer passed away at the very end of 2021. And it took about 12 months for that to settle and then for us to work out how exactly we're going to progress. But there were a number of people contacting Andy, a number of people contacting myself to see about training and to really take this on. So very proudly, we announce that the Spirit Release Academy is being born. And we're working with a qualification on the training. And this training will go to mediums and facilitators from around the world, because the actual level of work is extremely important, but the amount of work required is unbelievable. As more and more people in 2023 onwards start understanding energy, children are coming through, they have a much greater understanding of energy than perhaps our parents did or grandparents did. The frequency of the world has changed and is constantly changing and evolving. So there is more and more work required, and that means we need more and more qualified mediums, more and more qualified facilitators to go out there and work on the mental health stuff, work on the stuff with anxiety, work on the stuff where there's curse work that's required to be released, work on the stuff with attachments that need to be released.
Can I just ask, what barriers have you come up against from perhaps the medical profession or other professional bodies that don't see it how we all see it and know it to be true?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, actually, because I think this is the kind of the elephant in the room, isn't it, to a certain degree? And it's always there. When you're talking about anyone that's doing spiritual work, all we ever hear is there's no proof, it doesn't exist, But I just laugh and think, well, look at science. Science hasn't explained anything, and
Or history.
I used to laugh, actually, when I used to sit in history lesson at school, when they talk about, in the 1800s this happened and that war happened. I used to think, well, no one's alive that can confirm that. So how do we actually know that is true? And we always know as well with history and wars and things, whoever wins the wars writes the documentation.
Yes.
So that is the history. So, I was that guy at school that really didn't take anything per se to be true unless I could find it out and verify it myself. So I think, the medical profession, obviously, big pharma, there's a lot of money there, but I think, we could be working really well with those.
Yes.
And if it was one of Terry's things, actually, Dr. Palmer, he wanted to get us into hospitals. He wanted to get us into prisons. He wanted to get, a spiritual advisor into every doctor's surgery, or every GP surgery, really. So that when people come in that are presenting with mental health problems and anxiety, depression, some of these things, or they're hearing voices, if you could actually spend some time with the spiritual guy first, or girl, obviously, of course. So if you could see the spiritual consultant at first and get yourself cleared, and then go and see the GP, and then medication may help as well. Those two blended together would make a massive difference. And it was Terry's kind of, it was one of the key things he wanted to do. Of course, all of the time he was just coming up against the same problems whereby he'd give presentations and talk to psychiatrists. So the sort of organisation of psychiatry in the UK. And he said, behind the scenes, after he'd spoke, they'd all come up and say, we know what you're saying, we agree with it, you're definitely right, but we can't say this as a profession.
And it's more in this country. There's so many countries out there where you do get to, they do recommend you go and see somebody spiritual. You do.
Yeah, which is brilliant.
Wow.
I mean, how open-minded, and let's hope that. So is that what you two are? You carrying on that baton for him? What's your?
Yeah, hoping to. Hopefully, we're doing some justice. I mean, Dr. Palmer, he had just over 1,000 recorded cases of spirit release therapy. So we have the Spirit Release Academy. This is where we're going to start teaching people.
Great.
The website, spiritreleaseacademy.com.
And when will that be available? And where's how, so people might start looking for it straight away. How?
Yeah. So you can search that now.
Great.
You can search that now, Spirit Release Academy.
Great.
And we'll start taking names of people that are interested in the training, because that is coming through now.
Yeah.
And also we have celestialdefence.com, and Celestial Defence is a particular side of our work where we're helping corporate companies become sovereign in their energy, in their business. There are many companies that perhaps are tainted with some kind of negativity. The free flow of cash isn't coming in properly, and sometimes that is because of a negative influence. So we also have that as well.
And that's inside the company or outside of the company, isn't it? So you guys would go in and
clear it.
Yeah. And the buildings or the land, does that influence it?
So we're looking at every aspect really. It'd be the land, the building, the staff, the pipeline, the tenders that are live out there. Just looking on a real business perspective to go in and make a real positive difference.
So how did you guys come up with this wonderful business?
Normally involves a pub and beer, generally.
Excuse me, I think you're influenced by your guides. Hello.
They pretend they do. We know the reality. But I think we got talking really, and we realised quite quickly there's a lot of commercial enterprises that have contacted us independently and together to ask for help. And I've got quite a few clients in Australia and places that they have things like staffing issues, the staff that keep turning over, unhappy staff. If you're running a business, you need to have happy staff that come to work.
Productive,
with a positive vibration, and therefore the business will be positive and therefore be abundant, which means making money. So, if you look at a lot of the big corporations that are run by top-down negative people, the people that work in those corporations don't go to work happy. They don't come home feeling very happy, and they're negative. And of course, that attracts negative energy into the business entity, which then flows all the way down. Really, so we've looked, actually, we haven't actually found another organisation like ourselves that actually can provide this type of thing, where we work with big corporate entities to actually clear them from a spiritual perspective and keep them clear, which of course is the other thing. And that then will, from our perspective, we know that will then make them very abundant, and abundance will flow. And from my perspective, it means that the people that work for them will be happy.
Absolutely, that's it, isn't it?
And I've worked for loads of corporations that I've gone to work every day miserable and come home more miserable. So I'd love to work for a company that is actually interested in the spiritual wellness of their employees.
And think of all the people that you guys can influence and spread the word, who would never normally have gone looking for this sort of thing. So if their managing director gets you guys in, and everyone knows what's going on, and they feel different, and the company starts to perform better, have more positive results, then that's an amazing way that we're spreading the word of spirit as well, and the work that you guys do. And
well, this is it. So, I mean, even though we're in perhaps an industry where proving results is difficult, the proof is always in the client, and clients always give feedback. And that is where we get confidence in our work, because we do get confirmation. And we do get proof and evidence that it is a successful clearing session. So if we can go into a corporate agency as an example, where the boss is looking purely on a business perspective without any spiritual belief, if we can provide a positive clearing, we've now promoted the spiritual work that we do. And the boss will have no option but to start thinking there's something in it. So this is not just about us doing a clearing. Because I believe personally that everybody used to be spiritual.
Yeah.
Well, if you look back at all the indigenous belief systems, they are all pretty much exactly the same. And it's only since the Middle Ages that it's really changed. So if we can just change a perspective, we're not saying that people have to believe, but maybe just be a little bit more open-minded. The belief that we have goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So if it can just change something and give somebody a greater understanding, less fear, more happiness in their life, then that's only a positive thing.
Imagine there being, is it HR you have in a business? Imagine there being a spiritual person you go to talk to.
Yeah, just somebody
in businesses.
So maybe it will come to that, and every business will have like Michelle said, you've got your HR
Spirit
department, you've got your
relations.
finance department, you've got your wages,
Yeah.
and that's the spiritual head.
Yeah.
Well, this
of
is
the
exactly
department.
how communities and society used to be run.
Yeah.
You say, if we look at Britain as it was divided into many kingdoms, and
Yeah.
every king had a sage.
Yeah.
Yes,
Indeed.
yes, and an oracle, and the
Witch.
oracle.
Yeah.
And
Every
they
village.
still do, don't they? They still use them, don't
Yeah.
they?
Yes, yeah,
All-
they do.
all
They just don't
families.
tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, the royal families
But
definitely
the
do.
towns had the witches, the towns had the crones,
Yeah.
you know, the specialists in herbal
Yeah.
craft with that spiritual connection. They were important members, columns of the community.
Yeah.
The druids, they used to basically run communities, but they were spiritual energies, they
Yeah.
were spiritual beings.
Yeah, witch doctors.
Witch
medicine.
doctors, wherever you go,
Yeah.
Maori, Aborigine,
Yeah.
wherever you go,
Yeah.
it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, they would consult their either astrologist or their
Yeah.
sages. Shall we go to war? What will the outcome be? Didn't
Yeah.
they? That's
Yeah,
how.
Yeah.
yeah.
And now
Yeah.
it's evolved to mediums.
Yeah.
Us.
Yeah.
So let's bring it back.
Yeah.
Back
Yeah,
to the
I
old
think
ways.
that's where this big split. I mean, I'm seeing this big split happening really
Yeah.
in the population. You've got,
Yeah.
as Jonno said, people are being turned on spiritually, which the planet's evolving and changing, the frequencies are changing. So you've got a raft of the population forcibly becoming more spiritual, and those people are having voices and anxiety, depression, all the odd things are happening to them that they don't understand. And then you've got the technocratic aspect, which is the other side. So you've got the people that want to stay in the AI world, they put their little mask on and they go off into the matrix, and they don't, engage. And that's how I'm viewing the world now. That there
Yeah.
is this massive
Yeah.
split happening, really.
It's interesting. I have found, and I know Louise has, but having more GPs, more surgeons, more people that are coming for readings as well. So it's that very logical people
Yeah.
that have to be logical, think logically, see the body, very logically with ill health, but then them coming to mediums for guidance and spiritual well-being. It's good.
Yeah. Keep spreading the word.
And that's the shift we want, that's the change we want.
Exactly.
So tell us again give us the website address or how people can find you to do this.
So
service.
for the corporate side, we have celestialdefence.com, and that's really specialises in businesses. For the academy, we have spiritreleaseacademy.com, and that's concentration on the training side, getting people up, mediums, facilitators. But also I have my website, which is jonnowebster.co.uk, and Andy.
Yeah, so I've got andy-porter.co.uk.
Great, thank you. And is there any criteria for them to want, to come and train with you? What do they need to have to start off with? Do they need to be a medium? Do they need to be a healer? Do they need to be a trance medium? These are all things that you've said you are. So what do they need?
Yeah, so really for the academy, for people, so we're going to look for facilitators and we're going to look for mediums.
Yeah.
On the mediumship side, we need people that are qualified, confident mediums to take this work on.
Yeah.
So Andy and I have discussed some of the darkest energy and clearings that we work, but it's not like that.
Of course.
There are much lighter ones as well.
Yeah.
So we're looking for confident mediums that have got a proven history. So if they have a website, a social media presence, if they have reviews and testimonials, we need working mediums to come in.
Yeah.
We also, and that's from anywhere around the world, of course, because this work is remote, right?
Yeah.
And also we're looking for facilitators, those with a hypnotherapy background, those that work in psychotherapy, anybody who works in healing, but they work specifically with guides.
Yes.
Rather than doing readings and things like that. These are all people that we're interested in. And of course, if you're unsure, just contact us.
Sure.
And we'll guide you as to what the requirements are.
And also, if you are interested in doing this, but you don't have that sort of basic skill set, not that there's anything basic about it, don't forget me and Louise are teachers. So we do teach mediumship.
Yeah, come and learn with
Yeah,
us
people
first
coming
and then
from
move on.
development circles are ideal because they're finding their path.
Yeah.
And if they come through the right way, they can be very strong mediums.
Yeah, exactly.
So also you two, just tell us how are you both now able to do this full time the way that you are? Because doesn't life have a funny way of pushing us that way?
So basically I had a full-time job, full-time being 6.5 days a week. My concentration was on it, and that was stopping me from putting as much energy and time into my spiritual work as I wanted. It was a constant battle. I wanted to work spiritually, but I had to work in the physical world. And then my health took a dive very, very well within a matter of hours, and I ended up having an emergency operation. Whilst I was in intensive care, I decided that the physical world no longer bears me a benefit, and it's time to work spiritually. And so I started then concentrating, and this is just a couple of months ago, concentrating more on my spiritual work and telling Andy to get more involved.
I remember doing a reading for you, and it was as clear could be that you would be balancing the two, and then there would just be the one. And then Andy.
And then oddly, I've always had the same.
Really?
Funny enough,
Parallel.
Basically, John and I are the same person, just in a different body, really. So I had the same experience. I've been trying, for the last few years, trying to do more work spiritually, but a full-time job in IT that's taken most of my time, 5 days a week. So the spiritual work has always been my kind of passion and hobby, but never really been able to put enough time into it. So then, just 3 weeks after Jonno had his operation, I was then made redundant, which was perfect timing.
Oh my goodness!
So now I've got loads of free time to sit with Jonno, talking about what we're going to do and how we're going to do things.
Great.
Yeah.
So it's.
Have either of you had a specific message from your guides, or
Just get on with it.
Sassy little comment from
He just laughs.
Yeah.
Seriously, talking
seen
about
that.
this now, he's just standing there laughing.
Yeah,
He's not saying
absolutely.
anything.
Yeah, and Chen basically said to me, don't go back to IT, whatever you do. So that was pretty clear. So I laughed and said, if you can pay the bills, then I'm happy. So let's crack on with it. Really.
Yeah,
Great.
Brilliant, amazing.
And I feel you will, without question.
Oh
It's
my
going to be
absolutely.
a great success
Very
around the world.
exciting.
And I said to John, I keep seeing Brazil with this. So
let's see.
yeah, definitely. Wonderful.
There is actually a lot of work that we do in South America.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Good.
Great.
So, anything else either of you want to mention that hasn't come up, or you want to get out there for people?
Can I say something? Sorry. I just want to say, guys, if you feel, you're on medication, or they don't diagnose, don't tell you to come off medicine and stuff like that, I would presume. But if you just feel you've tried lots of things, and just give this a go.
Yes.
Give it a go. The changes are instant, and it truly is remarkable. I promise you.
Yeah.
So if you really are feeling a bit down, a bit low, can't quite work out what it is, what's going on, you're just not feeling yourself, your family is saying, oh my God, you're being really weird, or you're not sleeping and you're restless. And also when you look in the mirror and you look at yourself and think, I just don't feel me, I just don't see the reflections quite right, what I'm feeling back, I can't see myself. Various little signs like this, contact them and give it a go.
Absolutely. I mean, Michelle sort of put it in a nutshell. So, either of you got anything more to add to that?
Yeah, I think Michelle's just sort of summed it up very well, really. From my perspective, most people know that something's wrong with them, as you said. So if you're having odd thoughts, they're not your thoughts. I've had thoughts. I've been in these dark places where I've been stood on a bridge and you get this thought pops in, jump over. Jump over, why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
I didn't think that, and I know that I didn't think it, and I used to wonder, where did that thought come from?
Yeah.
So, people know they've got things with them, and they know that the thoughts aren't theirs. If they're thinking bad things, you can more or less guarantee you've got some sort of attachment.
Or somebody trying to influence your mind. And so now with me, it's just like, oh, get lost.
Yeah.
Go away. I know you just popped in.
Yeah.
My barrier's too strong nowadays, so off you go.
And I think that's the thing, Michelle, as well. Once you've had sovereignty, that Jonno described really well earlier, once you know you're totally yourself, you know who you are.
Yeah.
And I think most people got no idea who they are, actually, because there's so much.
The life today.
So much in there.
Yeah.
Everyone's
So
got
much.
it.
Yeah.
I've never had a client come to us and we've said, well, there's nothing there.
Yeah. Because even the work that you do, and one of the levels that you check are chords.
Yeah.
And that's attaching to people that are here now and,
Emotional.
that you may not be aware of.
Oh,
and
it's
that
so
alone
deep.
can have
We could talk about this for hours.
Well,
it's
we
like, what's
could.
your responsibility, what's not? But we've addressed a lot of this in our having that emotional responsibility for somebody else when, that could be a chord.
And it's so positive, and it changes people's lives.
Yeah.
It
It
changes
really
their
is. That's the important
families'
thing.
lives, because it's not just you that's affected; it's those around you.
Yeah.
And the more that people speak out and said, "Well, actually, I had this clearing work done, and it's really, really worked." The more that spread, the more positive changes we and everyone else can make.
I might have to just undergo the training myself. I'm feeling a big hand through me being pushed with
Well,
this.
there
So
we are.
I
Good.
might know a couple of people that might help.
Yeah, more people out there want to do it.
Yeah, spread the word
Yeah.
some way or another.
Brilliant.
Great. So, well, thank you both so much for
Thank you for
coming
having
in.
us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And seriously, thank you both for all that you do. It really, really
Yeah.
does make phenomenal changes to people's well-being.
And you're putting you out. You're like the front line, really.
Yeah.
You are
It is, yeah.
The
Andy
ones
will
that go
often use
in.
use the phrase "we're in the trenches."
in the trenches.
It is
Exactly. You're
fighting
the
it.
ones taking the bullets
Yeah.
and the cannons, and you are.
I've
Yeah.
just seen saying the front line. I've just seen like a spiritual ambulance. No,
Yeah.
we're coming. Emergency.
Love it.
That's what both like to be, isn't it? I
Yeah.
like to be in there doing the work.
Sure.
So we're not really interested. John and I get on so well because
Yeah.
neither of us really have any ego. So I'm not.
Exactly.
There is no competition ever.
No.
We've never been like that, really.
No.
We're
No.
both just keen to put ourselves at the front of the of the queue, and we'll walk
Get on
forward.
with
And we just want everyone to walk behind us, really.
Bless you.
Which will be great.
And a shout out to your guides, because they're just
Yeah.
amazing and they look
They
after
are.
you two so
And
well.
funny as well, I'd like to say.
Yeah, they are.
Very
Yes, they
funny.
are.
Right, well, it's been an amazing podcast. Look at that. We've
I
been
know.
gathering for
We could have gone on
55 minutes.
so much longer.
Well, we'll do it again once, when in a few months' time, we'll go again with So thank you, Andy, and thank you, Jonno, very,
you.
very
Yeah,
much.
thanks for having us.
Thank you both.
And then in our next podcast, we've got the wonderful Patrick Gamble,
Yeah, can't wait to
who
talk to
is
him.
the most phenomenal person and amazing psychic artist. I mean, he really is also.
Yeah, and a great story.
It is a good story,
Yeah.
so that'll be coming next.
So take care, everyone. Keep healthy and be aware. Be aware.
Keep sovereign.
And keep sovereign.
Keep
Yeah, I like
sovereign,
that.
guys. Yeah. Lots of love.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. For further information about private readings, demonstrations, and workshops, you can email Louise and Michelle at info@psychicsundays.co.uk. So until next time, stay connected, stay true, and always remember, Spirit loves you.